Hello, I'm Oral and welcome to Speaking of Other Thing. With me, I have a very interesting guest. She's always with us, and it's a pleasure to have Miss Claire Elshot with us. How are you doing, Miss Elshot?
I'm very fine. Thank you, Mr. Gibbs, and thank you for inviting me again to your program. And I would like to greet also your viewing audience.
And listeners too, and we're on radio too, right?
Oh yes, of course, the listeners.
But thanks, and I'm happy that you can be here because I said to you the last time, even if you're no longer involved in the day-to-day operation of the various unions, you're outstanding union leader in St. Martin for many, many years. I would love to always have you back on the show to speak about things, and you're here, and I appreciate that.
Yes, thank you so much.
So because to go back, you was the teachers union president for what, almost 30 years, right?
Almost, yes.
Yeah.
27 and a half years. I was president of the Windward Islands Teachers Union, and I was also president 2 times of the Windward Island Chamber of Labor Union, but the last time my presidency was extended. So even though I should have passed the baton to someone else, it keep getting an extension until finally September of this year, I became immediate past president of the Windward Island Chamber of Labor Union. And those 2 positions gave me a lot of experience into the social, economical, and also, the whole run-ins of workers' rights, human rights, and the whole works of it. So I am very grateful to the members from the Teachers Union who have re-elected me on numerous occasions and gave me that opportunity to be able to grow with the organization.
Were you ever involved with SER?
Basically, we had meetings with SER, but as unions, we had to nominate representatives on the SER. So when we were still in the Netherlands Antilles, we had representatives there. Mr. Theophilus Thompson was one of the representatives. After 10-10-10, he continued to be, but based on the statutes, you can only have 3 terms. So right now we have new candidates that are represented on the SER. The reason why I was not on the SER is because I was represented in the GOA that later became the CCSU.
Oh, okay.
And basically, that is the body, the advisory body for, civil servants and the workers with government. So anything that has to do with their rights and privilege. And in that setting, I've sat on numerous committees to handle the affairs and the changes within the civil servant corps, be it not only for teachers, when they came with renovations for the civil servants, etc. I was also involved in the various committees. So it is not something that you would say, well, if you're not in the SER, you have missed anything. There were occasions when the chairman of the SER invited the unions to meetings to also get a feeling of our sentiments, especially when it came to these measures that were driven down after COVID.
Yeah.
And we were very vocal about these measures that were really against the workers' rights, number one, and also took a toll on their financial their income actually for the households. So therefore we had several good meetings as the Chamber of Labor Unions with the SER, which is a very essential body also here in St. Martin.
I find it's very quiet because when you compare it to SER in Curacao, they're very public. They issue a lot of releases. They let you know what's going on. And the SER in St. Martin, I've never received anything from them.
They do have on a yearly basis publications, but the crux of the matter is that there is a struggle now within the who to represent the employers council.
That's still there?
Well, it went to courts, and earlier we got a request from the Department of Social Affairs
Yeah.
as unions to submit the candidates. And so unions, we have 3 representatives and 3 substitute members for the SED. We submitted that. Then they came that they needed a passport, a copy of the passport. We submitted that also. Then they came when they need a CV. We submitted that. So we are now waiting for the official resolutions, the Besluiten, where these persons are officially nominated.
Yeah.
And I guess when that process is finished and everybody has their legal paperwork, then the SER goes again. Because it's every 3 years, the guards would change, or you would be requested to send candidates. But now they wanted to include another employers organization within that advisory body. So whatever it is, that is between the employers themselves. We as labor unions, we are only focusing on our workers, their rights, their human rights, and to make sure that the input within the SER is also focused towards that.
You know, I was speaking with Mr. Thompson from the WIFO union, and he was saying that currently there's no respect given to unions by government. You know, it's unfortunate. He said, is that still the case? I mean, this was like 9-10 months ago when I last spoke with him.
Well, I feel from the pandemic, when as a Chamber of Labor Union, that is the umbrella organization of all the local unions, when we request meetings from the onset, the government that came in, they were quite, as I would say, confused about who to deal with. As social partners, when you come into a government, you should know who your social partners are.
Right.
And if you don't know, you should research to get to know, because these are persons that you should be speaking to. On numerous occasions, we wrote letters asking, showing our willingness to sit around the table and for us to come up with certain, strategies as to how we can best navigate the situation through the pandemic. But then, whatever happened, going to the kingdom and going for whatever reason, for whatever financial aid, there were different things that were imposed, as conditions, which should not have been those conditions, and especially the cuts. We as unions spoke very, very extensive on that. We had meetings, and once it was made clear that the difference between the unions that are actually representing civil servants and the whole body, because you don't have in a society civil servants alone. You have semi-public, you have the public and the private sector, which is a very important sector in your community.
Right.
And basically, as a government, you cannot play the ostrich role, only check for civil servants and do not. You as a government is the whole holistic approach. And we were looking for that holistic approach, the discussions that we can basically bridge and come up with some form of understanding. And I believe it was a missed opportunity for the government to actually sit with us and have that type of social dialogue. It was more of sharing information that was confidential and not even the full, because here in St. Martin, we were able to get the packet that the Dutch were sending down the throats of our members of the COM. And, the ministers,
Right.
etc. And they were still cutting up these things in information sessions and giving it to us piece, and then it had to stay confidential and all kind of
So the government wasn't
rigmaroles.
transparent then at all, you find?
No, and this should not be, because when it comes to me, my members, and my pocket, you should be transparent. Because if you want me to help in the sense of getting back the island, the hospitality sector, the tourism is out, and getting the island back on track, if I have to contribute a guilder, I would like to know
Right.
why a guilder, and try to even make it 50 cents and see 50 cents can do, But this is the missed opportunity that I feel that this government really, I know it was something that they did not anticipate. Number one, the COVID never happened before, that we have like guidelines or a handbook how to handle. But the fact that this dialogue, and it should not have been only on the level of unions with government, it should have involved also a tripartite dialogue where business, government, and unions, workers' representatives can sit together around the table, discuss matters, and put heads together. Not everything you would see eye to eye on, but something good would have come out of it. Definitely.
You've dedicated some 3 decades of your life to unionism. When you look at St. Martin today and the struggle, do you think the struggle is over, or there are still issues?
No, to be quite honest, the struggle is not over, because there are always different challenges, okay? And you have to be very, very have a keen eye to look at it. For example, right now, there was challenges with, before the pandemic, 2017, I believe, there were talks of a general health insurance or a NHI. Then
It's back on the front burner now. It's back on the front burner.
yes, it's back on the front burner. Then it turned into a GHI. Then now the last presentation was a SAAHA, something like that, some sustainable name, or a Otley Care.
It's going to go into effect in January, I understand.
No, it's not going to be January anymore, because the unions, when they saw the effect it would have without consultation on our members, we couldn't understand certain things that was in the documents. No presentation, as I say, no dialogue was given to the unions that need to take it back. There were only a selected group, and from a document of 226 pages, if you give me 15 slides, I'm not too sure that everything is in there. That they would say certain policies have small letters, and you have to read the fine prints good. Well, that opportunity for us to read fine prints wasn't even granted, and it's going to be affecting me and my family on the 1st of January 2024. So, of course, there was a whole campaign of unions coming together, meeting. Then the WICSU PSU organized an evening where for the general public, because this is what was lacking. It is not about the working class alone. In our society, we have people disabled, we have seniors, we have workers, we have unemployed, we have entrepreneurs. If you want to have insurance to cover the community, then basically, what does it mean for me that is working? Is it that I'm going to pay more and get less? How would you sustain this fund? Who would govern this fund? All of those questions, there were a lot of questions. And last week, on the 10th of October, the document with the questions was submitted to the minister. After that, we had a presentation the Thursday after, about, in a tripartite setting, yes, about this new concept. So you can see that it is a draft that keeps changing. So, as was promised, it's not going to be implemented again by January. So I hope that when this reach to Parliament, they can also ask wise questions and they can see through it. You see, the point for us too is that 5 years down the line, or probably 3 years down the line, we'll be sitting discussing the same thing because the sustainability is not there. The way, how would it be financed if you're going to take, for example, you're taking in bus drivers, taxi drivers. With all due respect, I'm not against, but how would they pay? How the families makeup would pay? And then there was also a factor we're going to up to be out. And there was some amounts given when you asked to opt to be out, something like 5,000 guilders you pay and 2,000 per child. It was very confusing. So I guess once the unions put their points forward and we have follow-up meetings on this and more clarity is provided where you have to let me see, Minister, the benefits, I believe then we can comfortably say, well, it's something that I can live with. And these are the things, as I started off by saying, not involving, before you make this whole presentation, not involving the tripartite, setting, having discussions with stakeholders, because what really surprised me at the meeting for the public, you had even two people that were professionals in the medical field. You had people from mental health that were questioning this new policy. You also had people like from the therapists, the physiotherapists that were saying, well, then they also had questions.
So there were more questions than answers.
Exactly. So that shows you that the concerns were not only from the workers' organization, but with the participation and including them now in the meeting, you could have also heard from professionals. You could also hear from doctors. How can you have a policy where the doctors don't know where you're going and the professionals in the medical field don't know what is in it? So these are the people that should have been consulted. And even if you had shelved it a few years, when you dust it off and you make adaptation, you should have had the same type of consultation.
Well,
so as a union leader, I would say basically seeing how things are running in Samata, we need to get to a standard, because I have been to the International Labour Conference in 2011, 2012, and 2013 in Geneva. And when you see the standard of the discussions and how things is done, especially taking into consideration workers' rights, human rights, you would say we still have a long way to go. Even in the backyard of the unions, we have to do more, awareness and also more education to our members. So it's not the government alone has its part to play, but as unions, we also have our role to play in educating our members on their rights and privilege.
All right, in case you've just joined us, this is Speaking of Other Thing on Hot 99.9 FM radio, YouTube and Facebook. My guest is Miss Claire Elshot. She's spent 3 decades of her life as president of labor union and everything else. She's a dynamic lady. It's always a pleasure to have her here with us. We're going to be right back after this, right here on Speaking of Everything. Please stay with us.
Hey, don't guess about your insurance. Be sure that you're covered. Like with your car. Like your home. Be sure to be covered in case of a fire, flood, hurricane, or some other natural disaster. And travel insurance, because you never know what could happen when you're on vacation. You could lose your passport, your luggage, or have an accident. So be sure that you're covered.
Insure yourself fast and easy with Be Sure from the Windward Islands Bank Limited. Visit your preferred WIB branch, WIB Insurance Services, or BeSureSt.Martin.com. Get your Be Sure insurance at the Windward Islands Bank, your partners in progress.
For real? Somebody came in here and steal my curtains? Well, it's a good thing I'm insured with Be Sure, because even the contents of my apartment are covered. Don't play guessing games with your insurance. Be sure.
Are you be sure? Be sure.
My guest here on the Speaking of Everything is Miss Claire Elshot. Speaking of Everything is on Hot 99.9 FM radio, YouTube, and Facebook as well. It's a pleasure having you with us. Miss Elshot, looking back at your time in the union and your experience, anything else you feel that needs to be done that is still lingering and
Well, from my part, what I feel I should do is document now.
Can I write a book?
Yeah, put the documents in place. I didn't have the time, but I have experience enough, trainings that I attended, etc., to put something in place in writing that people can, afterwards they can always use it in a positive way.
Yeah.
You understand? Because
Right.
this is what I find is lacking a lot. The history of trade unionism. We had Jose Lake Jr. that did
Friendly Anger, yeah.
Friendly Anger, but that is just one aspect, and that had a lot to do with when the uproar and when the government building got burned, those are good things also. But according to me, there are so many other things that you can empower people with. You can make the awareness of this is what happened. During my tenure, for example, we just had, for example, the court cases of equal work for equal pay. And those were they were predominantly carried by the teachers union in Curacao, where after they reached to the highest courts, and it was won, the rights for single workers with children, married workers and married workers with children became a right that also netted a back pay for a lot of persons.
Because they were paid less.
Yes, because we had scales, married and unmarried at that time. And basically, only if a woman got divorced, then she would get what they would call a kostwinnaarstoelage, like a cost of living adjustment, and that would bring her to the salary level of a married man. So only married men had good salaries back then. And with that, court case, a number of persons that have seen the development, for example, of salary scales, don't know the history behind of it. In, for example, teaching, for our salary scales reached to the maximum at age 38. So there was also a movement where we got new salary scales in 2008. So certain things have to be documented, because when you know historically where you come from, then you would know when it is time to press on the bell for changes. Right now, it is time to press on the bell for changes in teachers' salary scales, because when you reach to the step 20 in the salary scale, instead of giving you a roll over to the next scale, if you are in scale 8 and you reach 20 at a step, instead of rolling you over to 9, they are freezing you. Then what has to happen is either in the scale 8, you add, instead of 20 steps, you add 10 steps more. Because to the pension age, time has been added. You either add 5 to 10 steps more, because pension age for teachers back then used to be 55. Then it went to 60. Then it went to 62. Now it's at 65. And we don't know, with these measures that are still looming over us, when it would reach to 67 or 70. We don't know. So basically, I feel that is what should be my mission now, to have documentation of the history of trade unionism, especially from the I can speak from the specifics of the teachers. I know WIFL was going to do their history on their own, and then, probably it would then open the way and encourage each union to do something. For example, I know that UFA back in those days were very strong and dynamic, but right now, if a new worker come on the scene, they hardly would find anything to rely on or to go back to look at in those days. Now, this probably is what people will say the unions become weak, but people are not following the trend. And it is not that you become weak, it is because you are changing your strategy in the development of the world of work, and especially with regards to decent work. You're changing the strategies.
So you're adapting with change,
Yes. So basically, gone are the days that you would go into a negotiation, bang your hand on the table, turn it upside down, and come out feeling good. It doesn't mean that we don't have marches and we don't have protests. You can protest also in different ways, because you could start your protest by having your members know that you're going to write a letter. The letter writing becomes now a point where you can refer to that. And then after that, then you can step up your actions. In my mind, one of the things that always I found so beautiful after our march in 2020 against these cuts, it wasn't against our government. It was actually, you had to because it's going to take international news and it's going to reach the kingdom, you have to let the kingdom know that where the shoe is too small in St. Martin, Aruba, and Curacao. So we had these movements taking the streets, talking about the cuts with our members, the consequences, etc. Here in St. Martin, a development happened. And one of the developments that would always stay in my mind is when the union for the healthcare workers had an issue. They might not have been a victim of the cuts exactly, but in solidarity with all the unions, they were out there too. And then at a given moment, it was that they had one person in HR that came in and was making the lives of the people there, the workers, miserable. And it became Marco Polo had to go.
I remember that, yeah.
You remember? And this Marco Polo, got the name Marco Polo, and it was a very, very effective.
And he went, right?
Yes. Within 24 hours, Marco Polo was gone. So basically, it shows you the strength of unity. They were in solidarity with all of the actions.
And you all came back with it.
Yes. Yeah. That was such a beautiful action. It doesn't, for me, it sends the message that the strength of unity, solidarity, makes the union strong. Basically, we didn't have to go to the hospital and turn up no tables. It was good.
Mr. Elshot, it's such a pleasure always having you here. Thank you for coming in. 30 seconds, all yours in closing.
Well, in closing, I would like to encourage the workers of St. Martin to be unionized, because we still have a number of persons that leave fear take them over. Fear for whatever negative effect, fears for them losing their jobs. Well, I never leave fear be a part of me, and I spoke out, and I got things changed by speaking out in a respectful, demanding way, but I saw the changes. So I would like to encourage the workers, especially in education and in the private sector, be a part of a union. Don't wait until the problem. Support the unions.
Thank you very much. Yes. Always a pleasure having you. Hope to have you back sometime.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right. That's it for now. We'll see you next time on Hot 99.9 FM radio, Facebook, and YouTube. Take care. Bye.